Good morning, Maniacs, and welcome back to the Morning Mayhem. It's your boy Chris coming at you with another episode this week. Super excited about this week's episode. First and foremost, we just had July 4th. So for those of you that live in the United States, I hope that you were out celebrating yesterday, being with your family, friends, or just doing something to celebrate that. I did put a clip out yesterday. If you didn't get a chance to see it, I was reading the very famous essay entitled The Price They Paid. So if you didn't get a chance to go see that, I do highly recommend that. This is what it looked like, boom pow, and I will throw a link to it down in the show notes below. But it is something I plan on doing every July 4th, just to kind of keep that front and center. Now I know people have gone back behind that essay and disproven some of the stuff, or debunked some of it, or said it wasn't all that accurate, and that's fine. I'll continue to read it because it is historical, information that's in there, but I'm reading the essay for what it is. And I don't want to change it up because it's not mine to change or update or anything like that. And the stuff that's got debunked really wasn't like far-fetched. So it wasn't super exaggerations on anything. So I don't think there's a problem in continuing to recite that essay the way that I did. And I make no apologies for it. Now, if you have other feelings about it, that's fine. Let them be known here in the comments section. That's where you and I communicate here. And of course, on any of the other socials that are down there. Twitter is one that I've started using over the last several months and kind of gotten into it now. That's kind of my go-to. So having a lot of fun there. I do want to also quickly plug this Saturday night's Off the Rails. That is the live stream that buddy of the show, Third Railify, that he does every Saturday night at midnight Eastern time. This Saturday night is going to be a really fun show. It's actually his 40th birthday at the time. Like, as soon as we start rolling, boom, it's his birthday. So he turns 40, he joins the 40 Club. He's about a month behind me on that. So I already have so much knowledge and wisdom of the 40s to share with him. So I'm excited about being on that live stream with him. And I'm sure we'll have some other great folks on there as well. But that is a weekly show. And I don't plug it often because I'm not always on it. But I do want to start plugging it more because Sean over at Third Railify is a really, really good friend, a great streamer, and it's a lot of fun. So if you are free on Saturday nights at midnight and you're looking for something fun to do or something to watch, or even you want to watch it after the fact, that's a fantastic live stream to watch. And it does absolutely 100% go off the rails every single time, but that's what keeps it interesting and fun, and I do highly recommend that. So go check that out. And like I say, I'm going to be on there this Saturday night for sure, ringing in the 40th birthday for Sean of Third Railify. So be there in the chats. I'll be interacting with you guys there as well, and I'll leave a link to his channel. It's always exclusively on Rumble, by the way. So I will leave a link to that down in the show notes below as well. So join us over there and hang out with us. I have a lot of fun with the chat as we do the live stream. I don't do a ton of live streams, but usually just with him. And I do have some other ones coming up now that I think about it, but those will be announced as we get a little bit closer. So let's see. Today, we're going to look at how the new breed of parents are ruining or running off, I guess, seasoned teachers out of the schools. So they're kind of ruining some other stuff, I guess, but they're running off seasoned teachers, which these are the ones we really need, not these new modern teachers. No offense to the teachers out there, but you know the crop that I'm talking about. We also have a special visit today from a past guest. Jacob Airey is going to be back on the show today for a little bit, talking about his new book. We mentioned that when we spoke with him about a month ago. We had him on the show for our very, very first interview, which was awesome and received very, very well by everyone. But he's going to be back on today because we did mention that he had a book coming out. It has come out as of this past Wednesday. So I want to have him on to talk about his book, promote that, and I'll have links to that below because I want us to support other artists out there, independent artists like myself, independent filmmaker. He's another content creator out here on the webs doing his thing too, along with being an author. So definitely want to support him. But first, we got an election 2024 update. Roll the stinger. All right, right. So most, if not all of you guys that watch this channel on a regular basis, probably saw the Biden-Trump debate last week. I think it was. It was definitely a sight to behold. Trump was very composed, tight and on point, and Biden was a mess, to say the least. Finally, after the debate was over, it seems like all the liberal mainstream media kind of got the same memo saying, all right, you can finally start pointing out Biden's decline. You can finally start turning on Biden. And it all seemed very coordinated, very hand in hand, like, here you go, here you go, here you go, because it happened instantaneously as soon as the debate was over. But more on that in a little bit there. We're going to look at an article from the Daily Mail here in just a second. But after that performance, there's no coming back. There's no coming back for Joe. The media knows it. The voters know it. The DNC knows it. The only problem is Joe doesn't know it. Joe Biden will not step down, from my understanding, or step aside or whatever. And maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it's not. Depends on how you feel about the situation. But we are going to look at this article here in just a second. It's going to break down how it's not just the easiest thing in the world for the DNC just to replace him, how that can be devastating to their campaign. So let's go ahead and jump on into it. This is from the Daily Mail. It says key Democratic donors threaten to pull plug if Biden doesn't resign, as furious party insiders reveal worst fears about ailing president have now been confirmed. How stupid do they think we are? So this is neat because this is telling it from a different perspective of the donors. Now, there may be a little mix of other feedback in here as well, but you got to understand, one of the biggest parts of being a politician is being a fundraiser. We heard that from my hometown, not hometown, but my home state girl, Marjorie Taylor Greene, when she was on Tim Pool. She said that's basically what they do. For the majority, they're missing voting because they're in their office making phone calls, trying to do fundraising and whatnot, which is infuriating, to say the least. That's what we are voting them in there to do. To fundraise for their party, for their elections and everything like that. Oh, it's so infuriating. But we'll talk about that at another time. But we're going to get into this. We know that this is going to hurt the party because the big donors, the residual donors, those are the ones they can't afford to lose. And those are the ones they're going to fight tooth and nail for. So now they're kind of in a pickle here. So let's go ahead and read through this article. Not going to read the whole article. I did skim through it a little while ago, and it's pretty lengthy. So we'll just kind of skip through it a little bit. Remember, anytime I mention an article or pull up some data, statistics, whatever, I always have that information available to you guys in the show notes below. So a direct link to this will be there. So you can read the whole thing. Make sure I'm not taking anything out of context. I'm not, trying to deceive you or anything like that, which again is more than the mainstream media does. Imagine that. But we're going to scroll on down through here a little bit. It says growing Democratic over President Joe Biden's shockingly feeble debate performance on Thursday night, which is weird because it wasn't that shocking to those of us who have been watching him without that scaling or whatever that's over the eyes. We can actually see, right? People that have actually been woke, I guess, to the point where we are awakened and aware and actually watching and seeing what our politicians are doing. It wasn't that shocking to us. We knew it. Other people called it. Third Railify called it. I know I just mentioned him. The Quartering called it. Steven Crowder called it. Dan Bongino called it. I mean, everybody called it. Except the ones on the left, which is very telling, to say the least. More on that later. Okay. So Joe Biden's shockingly feeble debate performance on Thursday night appears to be turning into a full-blown party revolt. For Biden's own good and the good of the country, he should step aside immediately. Major Democratic donor and former hedge fund manager Whitney Tilson told DailyMail.com. The fact that it has now been 3 days and Biden has done nothing to reassure us confirms my worst fears. Tilson has given the party more than $300,000 in recent years. And that is so infuriating. I had another tweet pulled up and I said, we won't have time to get into that. But it was about Planned Parenthood and how we as taxpayers do so much funding to Planned Parenthood, and then Planned Parenthood turns around and donates a huge portion to the Democrat Party. So taxpayer dollars from Democrats, Republicans, independents, everyone, non-voters, everyone, goes into a bucket, and from that bucket we fund organizations that we may not personally agree to, but our politicians have decided that we're going to fund these organizations. Then some of these organizations will turn around and donate or lobby with, or donate with lobbying, whatever, a portion of those funds back, not to the taxpayers, to Congress as a whole, but to a very specific political party, oftentimes a Democrat Party. To me, that sounds like money laundering, but I'm not a legal scholar here. Okay. Like Ketanji Brown Jackson said, you know, I'm not a biologist, right? So I don't know what a woman is.
I'm not a biologist.
In this case, I don't know if it's money laundering or not. I can't say that for certain, but it certainly sounds like that. And they're not the only ones that do that, Planned Parenthood. So that was a really good tweet. And now I kind of wish I would have left it pulled up. But yeah, there's so much money in politics, and so much of it goes to where it's supposed to go for like campaigning and stuff. Look, I get it. That stuff costs money. There's no question about it. Running the ads. I mean, every time I open a video on YouTube or wherever, I'm seeing ads, political ads. Driving down the road, you're seeing signs. I mean, I get it. Okay. It costs money to do that stuff, but the amount of money raised is pretty astronomical compared to like what other countries do. And it makes you wonder if it's more about being elected to serve the people or more about the power that comes with the positions. I think we both know the answer to that. Moving on here. Sorry, $300,000, just it's a lot of money. You know what I'm saying? It's a lot of money. Days after President Biden struggled to hold his train of thought and tailed off mid-answer into incomprehensible gibberish during the CNN debate, left-wing benefactors are still up in arms. On Saturday, Biden appeared at a New York fundraiser in a glitzy Long Island beach town and, according to one attendee, read a simple 15-minute speech off a teleprompter before leaving without taking questions. Again, we've seen this before. This is all new to the people that have not been paying attention. To us, you and I, the people that watch the show, we have seen this before. If you are new here, one, thank you for watching. Two, don't judge me quite yet. I know I'm going to have a very conservative, right-leaning slant on things, but I got the receipts. I'm going to give you everything that I have to show you that I'm being as down the line and trustworthy as possible. Okay. So stick with me. But if you've been here a while, you already knew this. You knew what he was going to do. You know, he doesn't take questions. You know, he runs from the press. You know, I would say he's all talk, but we can't understand his talk. Right. And he's definitely no game. He hasn't accomplished anything productive as far as I'm concerned. Again, we'll finish this little section, then we'll skip around a little bit. Let's see, 15-minute speech, not taking any questions. Again, normal. Doing that for the next 5 months is not going to be enough, the fundraiser guest said, stressing that Biden's understandably anxious supporters deserve reassurance that he is capable of defeating Donald Trump in November. But later on Saturday night, Democratic National Committee Chairman Jamie Harrison and Biden campaign manager Julie Chavez Rodriguez only further stoked concerns on a conference call with wavering DNC members. Let me kind of look right here, see this is where I want to go. And you guys have seen these pictures, right? And I know the ones that I saw had like the saturation bumped up a bit, and I don't. The left does it. The CNN desaturated and greened out Joe Rogan when he had COVID. They did that. That's not the way the footage looked. I did a video a couple years ago with a debate between Biden and Trump, where the blue behind them were two different shades of blue. And of course, Trump was the orange man and he looked super orange. Well, I adjusted the blue to match. I zoomed in and I adjusted the blue to match. I zoomed back out and guess what? Trump wasn't that orange. They had warmed up his side to make him appear warmer. I think that might have been CNN too. I can't remember. Don't quote me on that. I have to go back and check. But you'll see here, and other people have pointed this out, he went from pale white as a ghost at the debate to now he's got that spray tan look just like a Trump. So what I was going to say about the adjusting and stuff is most of the pictures I've seen have cranked up the contrast and saturation to where it really pops more. I'm not going to do that. I might for a thumbnail. I don't know. But I'm not going to do that right here. I'm not going to play like that's how he looked. This is how he looked. I mean, but even still, this is a stark difference between this and the way he looked at the debate. I'm looking at this. It almost even looks like, unless it's just the quality of the picture. And I don't know if you can tell. I don't want to zoom in too much because it'll mess stuff up. But right here on the collar, right here on the collar, it looks like some of that spray tan stuff hit that collar, or some makeup hit the collar right there. I don't know if it's spray tan, makeup, or whatever, but you know what they say, if you can't beat them, join them, right? So it looks like Biden is now the new orange man. And a lot of people have pointed that out in the Twitter sphere there. Let's see. Yeah, here's some good stuff. It says Democrat donor Whitney Tilson, who we were just talking about, similarly didn't mince words. They're peeing on our legs and telling us it's raining. It's insulting. How stupid do they think we are? In fact, a CBS News YouGov poll conducted over the 2 days following the CNN debate found that 72% of registered voters now do not believe that Biden has the mental and cognitive health to serve as president. That number is up from 65% in early June. On Monday morning, Biden was still holed up in Camp David with his family, who had collected for a post-debate photo shoot with famed celebrity snapper Annie Leibovitz. I'm going to show you this because that is his crew. Okay? So from my understanding, and I don't know if this, I can't remember if this article goes into or not, that's the crew. That's the people he is consulting on whether or not he should stay in the race. His wife, who is getting dolled up in designer clothes by, you know, these big brands and fashion designers and everything like that. She's in all these magazines. She's getting all this attention, and she's the first lady. So they're getting catered to left and right. And then his son, well, who he says is the smartest person he knows. We all know what's going on with Hunter, but he's leaning on these two to help figure out if he needs to stay in the race or not. What an absolute joke. What an absolute joke. It almost made me vomit. Just think, these people make me sick. All right, let's shoot down here a little further. Okay. One reporter could be heard shouting, "Are you going to drop out?" Biden's apparent lack of urgency in addressing the party panics is even now raising alarm among Democrat lawmakers who fear Biden's stumbles may end up hurting their own electoral prospects. Everyone is waiting to see what the president is going to do and say, one House member said. This is key because here you've got not just your donors, not just the media, because I talked about the media, right? And they were talking about the media. But now you start having congressional leaders and House representatives and folks like that speaking up too. That's why I say it's done. It's over. Okay. As far as Biden goes, we can go down a little further and just read some more here. Again, I'm kind of skipping around, but I want to get to one specific section before I move on. Let's see. According to Brett Brune, a former Obama White House advisor, this widening Democrat dread is entirely predictable. Yes, for those of us paying attention. The donors are the canaries in the political coal mine, he said. As polls in the last days have indicated, there are reverberations from Biden's performance up and down the ticket. The notion that it gets messy if Biden steps aside overlooks the fact that it's already a big freaking mess, he added. Perhaps the biggest challenge facing the party is that even if the president stepped away, there would be no obvious replacement candidate or clear path forward. That's the other thing that's getting these guys. Look, come here. Nobody wants Kamala or Kamala. Nobody wants her. Then you got what? Buttigieg. Nobody wants Buttigieg. Newsom is a slick-haired snake oil salesman. Nobody wants Newsom. Okay. Then who else you got? People are saying Michelle Obama. She says she wants nothing to do with politics. She doesn't want to be in it. Obama can't come back, even though he may or may not already be back in the form of, an earpiece in Biden's ear. But yeah, who they got? Who are they going to run? They have nobody. They have nobody. They have no one. They have no clear path forward. It is a big freaking mess. Let's go back to it. Growing number of Americans don't think Biden is fit for office. This is fit, is not fit. Whew. So June, 35% thought he was fit. Now 27, 65 thought he was unfit. Now 72. Good gracious. Let's go ahead and wrap this up with this last part, if I can find it. Here we go. Yep. The only thing I hate about the Daily Mail is how it does cut off for you guys on the far left. And if I adjust it, it's going to mess everything else up. It just goes straight to the side. So I think you guys can see it enough, and I'm kind of reading it to you. So I'm sorry. It's not my fault. It says the most discouraging news for those who want Biden to bow out came from Chavez Rodriguez on a call with top donors on Sunday. She claimed that if Biden were to step aside, then only Vice President Kamala Harris would be able to use the funds raised by his campaign. That's right. The $91.2 million collected by the Biden-Harris ticket as of May 31st is not transferable. Stick that in your pipe and smoke it. That's what I was alluding to earlier. That's a big problem. $91.2 million not transferable to any other candidate according to Federal Election Commission rules. So perhaps the party would find its hands tied. And they messed up putting Kamala in there. One of the worst ranked presidential candidates of all time. One of the lowest ranked, if not the worst ranked, vice presidents of all time. If they go with somebody else and Biden doesn't just step aside or do whatever they got, I don't know what they got to do. I mean, they were screwed. That's why I say it's over. But I don't want to celebrate too early. And I'll point out this too. There was an image come out the other day that I think a lot of us saw. Oops, scroll down. I thought it said a cuss word. Good on you guys. You cleaned it up. I'm proud of you. But this was not necessarily from unwillingness, but this is who I saw it from. It says, according to leaked polling numbers from Democratic firm Open Labs, this map falls within the margin of error. Again, this is their own polling data, and it shows 358 electoral votes for Republicans, Democrat 180. This is for Biden against Trump as it stands right now in a poll. So at first, I know you want to say, win! But actually, I don't think it's that simple. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised for a couple of things. One, between this news and the news they can't replace them, everything like that, they are not trying to gaslight us into, just like with the 2022 red wave that never happened, saying, oh, it's all over, Trump's got this, and then we stay home. We quit campaigning. We quit going out there. We quit doing stuff. And, it's not what we want, but it's what they want. That can end up very badly for us all. Yeah. So I want to look at a couple of comments here. Again, this is on Twitter. You can find me on Twitter. What am I at? Morning_mayhem, I think that's me. It's in the show notes below. Check it out. But again, in wokeness, yeah. And this is from one poll, from my understanding. Hodge twins, don't trust their data. They want us complacent. We have got to have the biggest turnout in history to win. We already had more votes for an incumbent president. An incumbent president has never gotten, from my understanding, and I could be wrong, this one I don't know 100%, but if memory serves me correctly, there's never been an incumbent president to get more votes their second time around for their reelection and then still lose. And of course, we know President Joe Biden got 81 million votes, more votes than any other president in history. And I'm sure it was all legit. Bullshit! But to what the Hodge twins are saying, to what Crowder is saying, to what everyone is saying that's got any kind of voice or any platform on the conservative side, is we have to show out and show up in such huge numbers that they can't manipulate things. They can't cheat. They can't get away with stealing. They can't do what however you want to word it, however you want to call it, whatever you want to say. If we show up in droves and in large enough numbers, it's either going to be impossible or it's going to make it close enough to impossible. It's going to be very, very difficult to manipulate anything. So we still have to show up, guys. We still have to show up. We still have to vote. Don't let this map fool you. Don't let anything else they're coming out with. Oh, it's over. Like I was saying, it's over. It is over, but it's still only over if we go vote. If we stay home, it's not over. God only knows what'll happen. A few more comments and we'll move on out of this segment here. I think I hear fireworks still going off. That's fun. That's exciting. Here's a good one. So this is persistence. This is Scott Pressler. We actually spoke about him in last week's episode of the Morning Mayhem. Did an interview with Robert Herr from the Washcast. I'll leave that in the description or the show notes below too. That was a fantastic interview with Robert, and Robert's come to know Scott. Scott is involved with, or he founded, so he's definitely involved with a group called Early Vote Action. He is the founder of that. We did speak about that. There is a website that you can go to. There are apps for Android and Apple. I will leave links to all that in the show notes below. I think it is vital to go check that out. He is on a rampage with all the volunteers like Robert and so many others to register people to vote, to get the word out. They are looking like they're going to flip Pennsylvania, which is phenomenal. But it takes the groundwork. It takes it takes us going out there and doing the work that the Democrats are doing to get the messaging out there, registering people to vote, offer rides to the polls, help them out in any way. I mean, the Democrats have got the ground game, and the Republicans have always kind of stood by and watched. It is time to be more aggressive, and it's time to be more proactive as far as that goes. And hats off to Scott Pressler. Again, I'm going to leave links to Early Vote Action and all the apps and all that good stuff down in the show notes below. Please go check that out. Please go check that out. And again, just a couple more moving on. The quartering. Loved me some Jeremy over at the quartering. This is a psyop, and I did hear him cover this map specifically. This is a psyop to get this exact reaction. Nothing is over. It will still be near impossible to get Trump to win in November. Yes, it will, because we have everything working against us. So that's what I'm seeing, guys. I mean, everything is pointing to a Trump victory right now. I mean, you got Biden that needs to go. Biden that's probably most likely going to go. No real good option to replace him. The money may not even transfer over, right? And then you got this leaked map. You got all these polls coming out, but we knew how great polls were back when he was running against Hillary and had Hillary up by a lot in every poll. So we know we can't trust the polls. We know we can't trust these leaked documents. And what can we trust? Nothing but you and me going out there, standing in line and putting our vote in, taking our friend with us, taking our grandma with us, whoever, getting out there, getting the community involved, getting our friends and family, just ask them like, hey, are you registered to vote? Hey, do you want to ride with me to the poll? Hey, what day are you going to go vote? Are you going to early vote or are you going to vote the day? Come on with me. Where's your polling location? Just having a conversation. We have to have this ground game. We have to get after it. What do you guys think about all this? Do you think that this is a game that they're trying to play and trick the Republicans to stay at home or to lighten up on the ground game a little bit? Or you think they're in genuine panic mode? I think it's a little bit of both, if I'm honest. But what do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments section below. This has been your Election 24 update. All right, guys, we got another guest coming back on the show. This is actually my first guest returning, so I'm super excited to have Mr. Jacob Airey back on the show today. He's going to talk about his new book that just got released. We did speak to him about a month ago on the channel, and he was my very, very first interview. I was super nervous about it. This gentleman has a very, very good background and sharp as a tack. in a multitude of areas, right? So a little nervous about speaking with him, but you know what? He was so cool, so calm, so awesome to talk with. I'm very excited to have him back today to talk with him some more. Let's see. Again, I will throw a link to this interview that we've already done down the show notes below. It was phenomenal. I mean, he is a fan favorite. I've gotten a lot of feedback from having him on and the conversation that we had, and really look forward to talking to him now. So he is a self-proclaimed author, nerd, movie reviewer, and pop culture critic. He runs a website and is on a variety of media platforms. Links to all those will be down below, by the way, where he covers film, TV, anime, and faith. He's been a frequent panelist on the Michael Knowles Show. His work has been featured on the Stephen Cortez Show, Clownfish TV, The Blaze, Bold TV, Fox News' The Five, The Daily Wire, and on Hollywood and Toto, where he was listed in the Ultimate Guide to Conservative Movie Critics. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome back to the show, Mr. Jacob Airey. All right, Jacob, man. Hey, thanks so much for coming back on the show. Really enjoyed you last time. The folks that have watched have really enjoyed it. I know my pastor got on and he had some comments and he really enjoyed it, and he shared it around with some other folks. So you were a pleasure to talk to before. I know you're going to be awesome to talk to again this time. And really, again, appreciate your time in this. Now, today I brought you back because we spoke last week about some of the things you had going on, and one of them was a new book that you were writing. And wanted to bring you on and give you an opportunity to kind of talk about that book. I know it just came out on Wednesday, and so we didn't get to pre-shoot this before it came out to promote it, but that's okay. We're going to promote it now, and I'm going to give you the floor here in just a second. But before I do let you talk about that book, I do want to kind of get into kind of what you do with the books and stuff. Like, this is not your first book, correct?
Right. And thank you again for having me back on. And this is actually my fourth release. I'm very excited about it. I have one that's a standalone sort of supernatural paranormal novel, and then the first two parts in my fantasy trilogy, which the third part I'm working on right now.
Okay, so the one that's coming out is the third part, or is it?
No, this is a standalone. The one that's coming out that came out on Wednesday, Blessed Child. This is a standalone novel. This is the work print that KDP sent me, my publishing company. That's why there's this obnoxious bar. I promise you, when you buy it on Amazon, this bar will not be here.
Okay. So you kind of hinted a little bit about the trilogy that you're writing. So what are the genres you're writing? And then what specifically kind of genre style is this one in?
So Cacophony, which was my very first novel, and I was actually that publishing company's first ever fictional book. Wow. So it was fun to write that one. I was heavily influenced by C.S. Lewis and Frank Peretti, who many might know from the late 90s. He was a evangelical Christian writer. He's since retired, which I'm very sad about because I've read all of his books. I think I own all of them. But it's about this group of demons called the Grigori who come to this small Texas town, and they basically want to take it over. And so God and his infinite wisdom sends the 7 archangels. Now, one thing that people were a little confused about is I didn't make Gabriel an archangel because I don't see any biblical references to him being an archangel, but Gabriel is a character, but I refer to him as a messenger angel. And he and the 7 archangels, they work together to try to sabotage the demon's plans. And I tried to write it without being cheesy because growing up being a pastor's kid, I pretty much read, all the Christian books that were out at the time. And a lot of them were very cheesy. Some of them were really good. Like Gilbert Morris is a very talented Christian fiction writer. I can name several others, but I wanted it to be more in that vein, to be taken very seriously. Later, I started writing The Seven Royals, which eventually originally supposed to be a shorter book, but it ended up being longer than I expected. But that's The Seven Royals, All Good Things. And I wrote that book because I went to the bookstore and I was looking in the fantasy section. So I'm a big fantasy reader, and this is more of a high fantasy book. It's got a lot of lore to it. And there's a lot of big world building in it. And I wanted to get something, so I really like reading people's takes on fairy tales, but all I found was trash. It was just all of these trashy, basically Harlequin novels. And I decided to do something about that. And so that became The Seven Royals, All Good Things. It actually took me 5 years to write. It was it was a labor. And
Wow.
I had it. It went through several revisions because originally the main character, his name is Jasher, and he is based on Joshua from the Bible. The other characters are based on fairy tales. So I have Talia, who is the Russian version of Sleeping Beauty. I have Belle from Beauty and the Beast. The Brave Woodsman is a character. I name him James, named after, he's not named in the original fairy tale, so I chose James from the Epistle of James. And it was a lot of fun to write. I have Hansel from Hansel and Gretel. I gave him the first name of Philip because I just, again, an apostle from the book of Acts. I named him after that. And I wanted to restore them to sort of their fairy tale fantasy roots without any of the trash. So it's very high action. What happens is their kingdoms get taken over because their families all rule kind of an allied set of kingdoms. But then this evil wizard comes, this mage, and he takes over everything with an army of orcs and vampires. And so they have to flee. And they actually put Jasher, who's the oldest, in suspended animation for 10 years. And then he wakes up and rallies them together. And the sequel continues that story, but with a different villain called the Wicker Man. And he's trying to collect these zodiac seals. And if he collects all of them, he gets greatly enhanced as an evil wizard, and so they have to stop him. And then this third book that I'm working on, it will conclude what I'm calling the Dark Army trilogy, which is the Seven Royals. Now, Blessed Child, this book was more of they all were something I was really passionate about, but I have been calling this book a labor of love because this book just kind of came to me one day. I was having a casual conversation with my boss. He was asking me questions about my books, and he made a comment about, well, dragons can celebrate life, right? And I thought, you know what, that's kind of interesting because my books, they definitely celebrate life, but it was more of an undertone. So this book, I put a very strong pro-life message in it. And it's about this princess. She's an elf, and she was married to a human, and her husband passed away prior to the events of the book. But then she finds out she's pregnant. Now, if you're familiar with elf lore, elves usually give birth to either halflings or to full elves, even if their mate is a different species. That's just kind of a common, that's in Lord of the Rings as well. So, yeah. However, they discover that the baby is fully human. It's not elf at all. And they want her basically to terminate the pregnancy. So because the elves don't want to be ruled by a human. So her father hires this knight, Sir Matthew, and brings him in. Now, he is disgraced. He's been humiliated, and he wants to redeem himself because he believes that he can do that by becoming her protector, which is what ends up happening. And they form kind of an unlikely bond during this time, during the pregnancy. And there are certain forces that want to keep her from getting to the throne after her father passes away. It was a very enduring book to write. My sister, she actually did the cover. She did a fantastic job. And in my humble opinion, this isn't AI. This is my sister using her tools. Mm-hmm. She did a fantastic job on it. And it was, like I said, so much fun to write. There are so many other key components to it, but that's kind of the central core message of it. And a lot of things inspired me along the way as I wrote it.
I was going to ask you who did the artwork because I remember you mentioning it was your sister. I don't want to make sure we gave her a shout out because it looks really good. I remember when you spoke about it before you showed the cover art. I think you mentioned that your sister had done it, and then you showed it, and it looked fantastic. So always got to show everybody some love that worked on that. So it does look great. It does look great, and the passion that you have behind that is just amazing. That you've created this kind of lore and backstory of all these different characters and these worlds, and not just in this book, but just the depth in which you write is fantastic. You mentioned C.S. Lewis. I know you've mentioned J.R.R. Tolkien before. These are folks that have some really great classic literary works that are just acknowledged as some of the greatest works of art that we have in literature. One of the things that we've seen, especially lately for modern audiences, for, lack of a better word, we've seen not necessarily rewrites, but reimagining as they've been made into TV series, movies, whatever else. miniseries, cartoons, anything. And in some instances, we've seen where they've taken the original works and kind of twisted and manipulated them, changed out characters, changed out stories. You as a fan of these guys and as an author yourself, as an artist, because again, I'm an artist too, as a filmmaker, so there's something very special about an artist acknowledging and respecting and taking in somebody else's artwork, because it's just so there's so much respect from one artist to another in this world. When you see that, especially somebody that you've looked up to, like a C.S. Lewis or J.R.R. Tolkien or their works, how does that make you feel as an artist to see the twisting and manipulation of their classic works into, some of the stuff that we're seeing today?
It's disheartening, because my understanding as it is told to me that the rights with Lord of the Rings is Warner Brothers has, because they own New Line Cinema, which did the Lord of the Rings trilogy. They have the rights to the Lord of the Rings and to the Hobbit. And as well, and those come with the appendices, which were a big expansion over what Tolkien wrote. I think it was added in an addition to Return of the King. With Amazon, they specifically have the rights to the Unfinished Tales and the Silmarillion. And I actually, when I first heard Amazon was doing it, I actually got excited because the Silmarillion, by the way, the Silmarillion is not a novel like Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit. The Silmarillion is written like a historical textbook, but that's because it was mainly meant to set up the history of Middle Earth. And it's kind of disheartening to see the way that Amazon Prime went with it, because what they could have done is they could have said, okay, we're going to adapt Beren and Luthien from the Silmarillion, which is referred to several times in Lord of the Rings. Aragorn and Arwen get compared to them, for those of you familiar with Lord of the Rings. In fact, there's a scene in Lord of the Rings where Viggo Mortensen is singing a song, and Frodo asks Aragorn, as the character, "Who is she, the woman you sing of?" And he says, "Beren, who gave his life to Luthien, the Elvish princess." And they could have done, first season, we're going to do Beren and Luthien. Second season, we're going to do the fall of Morgoth, who is the big bad that corrupted Sauron. And they could have just, now we're going to do the fall of Numenor. They could have done it as an anthology series and adapt it well. But what they decided to do was take the first age and the second age, which is like 4,000 years of history, and crammed it into however many seasons they're playing. I think I heard they want to get to 5, but it's looking more like they might get to 3 if they're lucky. But they wanted to cram 4,000 years of Middle Earth history into 5 seasons of a show that has maybe 10 episodes, right? You just can't do it. And so they had to cut corners. They had to merge characters. They had to add new ones to fill in the gaps. And I even talked with this with a friend of mine, because she said, "Do you have a problem with them adding new characters?" And I said, no, because the Silmarillion is written like a history book. So if you need to put in a new character to help fill in the gaps, I don't have a problem with that, but they need to be like they're supposed to be. So if it's an elf, they need to have long hair. If you notice, what's something missing from the elves of Rings of Power? Very few of them have long hair, and it's very frustrating to me. I know that's a nitpicky thing, but it bothers me enough.
Sure. Hey, and when something bothers you, it's very clear. You had one of your shows recently talking about Prince, what's his name? Oh,
Prince Harry.
Golly, on ESPN. We won't even go into it. That fired you up, and I'm not trying to get you fired up on this show. But man, I don't know if I've seen you fired up like that before. But yeah, it's a little it's a little hurtful to see like these works that we've all come to know and love kind of get taken advantage of and become something that the original authors probably would never have really gotten behind. Speaking of which, so you've created a whole world with your series, like you said, all the lore and the backstory and character arcs and everything that you created with your stuff. Now, could you ever see optioning off this stuff for somebody to make a TV series or a film or something like that? Now, would you want to make sure that you micromanage a little bit so they don't go up the works?
Yes, I highly recommend people look up the story behind The Last Unicorn. That author got he sold the rights to his book to, I believe, MGM, and it took him 20 years to get the rights back. He thought he was just signing an adaptation deal. but then they tried to spin it that they had actually bought the rights to this man's work. And it took him something like 20 years to get it right. So I will be dotting every I and crossing every T myself to make sure that this is nothing more than an adaptation. And yes, I will be micromanaging it. Now, Cacophony, I could see being live action with just because of the premise that it is with the demons and the angels. I could see it being something like that. The Seven Royals, I always kind of picture like a 90s Saturday morning cartoon. I don't know why, but whenever I personally read chapters to people or on my vidcast, I always try to visualize real people, but it just in my mind's eye, it always turns to animation. But I would be willing to option off them for a film adaptation. I think that would be fantastic. But I would definitely have to read the contracts and make sure that I'm not losing the rights to the book or to the story. Like I said, especially what happened to the author of The Last Unicorn. But I highly recommend to your viewers to look up that story, because when he finally got the rights to his own work back, they filmed him and he just broke down in tears because this had been a 20-year ordeal and you just felt for him. He finally did it. And it was really cool because his son was there with him, and his son was patting him on the back when the judge made the judgment. But that's what happened. He took on a billion-dollar corporation, and this underdog beat them, and he's my hero. So I really hope that, at least in that regard. So I hope that if I do get an option, I won't be hopefully swindled into some sort of predatory deal like that was.
Yeah, but we know they try to do it, don't they?
Oh yeah.
All right. So the book is out. Where all can they get the book? Where all can they find it?
It is available exclusively on Amazon. It's real simple to find. Just type in Blessed Child and then my name, Jacob Airey, and it comes right up. I will have links to it on my website, studiojakemedia.com, and also on my socials. It'll probably be my pinned tweet for the foreseeable future.
Okay.
So, but I really want everyone to get a copy and to leave me a 5-star review if you liked it.
Yeah, and like he says, so since that'll be easy, it's just on Amazon. So I'll definitely have a direct link to that book in the show notes below. I'll also, just like last time, have a link to all Jacob's socials down below, and probably the link tree because he's got socials all over the place. But before I let you go, do tell the people one more time, what all do you do? Because you're not just an author. What all do you do, and where all can we find you?
I also have a vidcast on YouTube, which is Studio Jake. It's also available on Rumble, BitChute, and Odyssey. And also, like I mentioned, my website. I won't rehash the URL again, but I do reviews and commentary there, mainly reviews, but I'm trying to get more into the commentary. That's actually something my followers have said, hey, can you actually just write what you think about this thing instead of a review for a TV show? So I'm going to try to do more of that. But also I do, just as a profession, I do marketing. I have a lot of fun in doing that. It's very creative. I always say my parents were very supportive of my writing career. They just wanted me to have a fallback plan, just in case. So that ended up becoming marketing, which works because I'm able to exercise my writing muscles a lot in that sort of profession.
Fantastic. Well, buddy, man, I appreciate you coming back on the show. And guys, go pick up Blessed Child. And hey, while you're at it, go get some of those other books too. I mean, why not, right? Any parting words from you, sir?
I just want to say that I believe that everyone has at least one book in them, even if it's a DIY book. Everyone has at least one book that they can write. It doesn't have to be fiction like mine. It can be nonfiction. It can be whatever. It could be a publishing of your journal. I know people who have done that. So I encourage you to sit down and write it out. At least one. Get it out of your system. And if you decide you don't want to do any more, that's fine. But I do believe every person on this planet, without exception, has at least one thing to publish in their lifetime.
Very good. Very good. Well, again, thank you, sir, for joining us again. You're always welcome, folks. Jacob Airey, check him out. Again, it is a special treat to have folks like Jacob come on the show. Again, we had Robert Herr last week. So kind of back-to-back interviews here, which is not something I'll be doing on a regular basis probably, but it just so happened to work out that way because I wanted to have Jacob back on to be able to speak about his book. So guys, please, please, please consider going to check out his book. You can purchase it as the ebook on Kindle or whatever like that, or just the hardcover, soft cover cover, all that good stuff. So go check it out, considering supporting him. I just really love the opportunity to support another artist. So go check that out. Links again, I know I already mentioned this, but links again will be in the show notes below. And in fact, I have direct links to it, so you don't have to search for it or anything like that. And also the link to his general Amazon that talks about him, has his other books on there in case maybe you're interested in all that too. So he is a top tier guy. He is a fan favorite of the show, and want to keep showing him some love. So make sure you go check that out, and stick around too to the Morning Mayhem in general, because we have some more guests in the pipeline that I'm super excited about. I'll announce a little later on as we get closer to it. And again, I've been asked to be a guest on some other people's shows, so I'll be mentioning those as those come along. We are growing and getting bigger, and our influence is kind of spreading and meshing with other people's groups and everything, and it's such a beautiful thing. And I obviously have you guys to thank for that. The subscriber count has been going up through the roof. A lot of it has been because of the Morning Mayhem, and a lot of it's been because of Mayhem Reacts, which is kind of what I did just for filler and for fun. So for those of you that are here from that, I hope you've enjoyed the show so far. And we do have another segment we'll get into, and some reactions I'll put out this week that are actually movie reviews. I didn't mention that earlier, but I do have a couple of movie reviews because I actually saw a couple of movies, and that doesn't happen that often. So I do want to share those with you guys. Those will be out this week. Or this coming week, I guess, until next Friday's show. But yeah, I'm excited about the guests that we've got coming on. I'm excited about all of our new subscribers. Those of you that are new, welcome aboard. Thank you so much for being here. And those of you that have been here a while and you are OGs, hey, I appreciate you getting on the ground floor, believing in me, and hope I haven't let you down. I hope I haven't let you down. And I've seen in my comment section where I've had to go back and forth a little bit with some folks. And even though we disagreed ultimately on some stuff, it was an argument of passion. They were passionate about what they were talking about. I was passionate about what I was talking about. And it was two people just being absolutely genuine. And we enjoyed that. And so if this is the kind of show that you want, these are the kind of conversations you want, definitely stick around, because whether you agree with everything or not, I'm coming from a place of just trying to be truthful, trying to be authentic. And like Robert and I talked about in the interview that we did with him, that's what people seem to like more than anything. It's just that authenticity, when someone is just trying to be themselves. So thank you for sticking around. I don't know why I got on this long ramble, but I did. We do have one more article we're going to look at today before I wrap up, and it's a little bit of a doozy. So I'm going to go ahead and shoot on over to BuzzFeed, of all places. I kind of shocked that I went there myself. But this is very applicable to where we are in the world right now. So I wanted to mention this one. This is a little outside the realm of maybe what I would normally talk about, but it's one that I think flows with a lot of the stuff that I do talk about, and kind of ties into where we were. I think it was 2 weeks ago, I covered the story about the cops that were being replaced by illegal immigrants, or the Dreamers or DACA folks or whatnot, and that they were losing good cops because of bad policy. They were not being treated well, and they're going to be replaced with bad cops. And I went on a rant about that, about how that's very, very true in all professions. When you lean on and you push your hard workers, your reliable workers, your good workers, and you pump the brakes when it comes to the bad workers, or the ones that are always late or don't do as much, and not necessarily bad, I guess, but the underperformers, and you treat them the same as the others, and you don't get on them, but you put more weight on the ones that do the stuff because they're going to do it. That's not how you treat employees, and that's how you push away the good ones. So we're going to look here, and this is about teachers, and I've got mixed feelings on teachers, and we're going to talk about that a little bit too. But this is a spot on take, and again, a little shocked that I'm using BuzzFeed for this. But we're going to go through this entire article. It's not very, very long. And it's from a TikTok that a teacher put out. And it's got some comments in here. So we're going to run through this together. So again, from BuzzFeed, it says, education is unbearable. Here's why this newly retired teacher thinks teaching is a dying profession. It says, I can no longer deal with the new type of parent and the new type of child that is a product of the parent that I am trying to teach. Get ready. This is going to be a fun ride right here. And this may step on some people's toes. It says, being a teacher can be a difficult job, and after 24 years in the profession, Brenda C. officially retired, but not before telling her TikTok audience why. So a teacher having a TikTok at, what is it? She's been teaching for 24 years. The truth about teaching 42. I don't know what that number has anything to do. Maybe her age. Anyways, TikTok is TikTok, so there's something to be said about that too, I guess. But it says it is unbearable, and that is why there's a teacher shortage. In the video, which has received over 1.4 million views and 9,000 comments, the 60-year-old, okay, so that's her age, the 60-year-old middle school teacher from California starts the TikTok explaining how education has changed so much over time that it has become unbearable. Brenda says, I have seen education change in 24 years, and it hasn't changed for the better. And a lot of it has to do with parenting or lack thereof. Oh my goodness. Lack thereof. That's what my subtitle. I want somebody to turn subtitles on, closed captioning on for me. I am so redneck, country, southern. I'm sure it does stuff like that to me. I probably look like, if you read the transcript that it produces, I probably sound like a clone of Joe Biden. I know what I'm saying. I'm not really slurring my words because I don't have the cognitive ability. I'm just redneck. Moving on. It says, in the TikTok, she then addresses how some parents send their students to class without supplies such as pens, pencils, books, and notebooks, which ultimately affect learning time. That, paired with interruptions in the classroom that Brenda described as insurmountable, makes teaching feeling virtually impossible. The interruptions are insurmountable, so trying to teach is virtually impossible. Yeah, I've got a child in school. She's 11. She's about to go to the middle school. And I know we make sure she has her supplies. And when the teacher says, oh, we need Kleenexes for the class, we send Kleenexes. Hand sanitizer, we send hand sanitizer. Now, when it comes to, we need cookies and we need this, and sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. We on a budget too. We need volunteers. I got a job. Let them stay-at-home folks do it. But when it comes to supplies that I know teachers have to come out of pocket for, or the school has to try to support somehow, or other parents have to try to do it, I try to do my part. I'm not perfect by any means, but I want to make sure my child is taken care of. And sometimes that means that the class is taken care of by having those other supplies as well. So I understand that, because I know she comes home saying that other kids don't have their supplies and they run out of this and that. So I get it. I know that they're doing this. Says she then compares teaching to being a babysitter. Absolutely. Saying that it's not an over-exaggeration to say that teachers have to put out fires all the time. The middle school teacher explains how she can no longer put up with some of the new parents she has to work with. Brenda says in the video, I can no longer deal with a new type of parent and the new type of child that is a product of the parent that I am trying to teach. And we all do is we're putting out. Okay, so this is just terribly putting what she's saying. Okay, so here's the pictures. I feel like this is a picture, but there's the pictures, class. Let's scroll to the story. As Brenda has observed, some students, don't judge me. I see you judging me. I see you. I see you. As Brenda has observed, some students seemingly don't care about school because their parents don't. As she puts it, if parents cared, she would see students in the classroom who did as well. To elaborate, Brenda told BuzzFeed that before, parents worked as partners with teachers and that they were more accountable for their child's learning and behavior in their classroom. Now it appears that some homes are child-centered, meaning the kids are in charge. As a result, students take that untouchable attitude into the classroom. Brenda says that not only are some parents seemingly not involved in their child's education, but they also don't respect the profession. Aside from the classroom learning, the 60-year-old teacher told BuzzFeed that some parents don't appear to be teaching their children the basic life skills, such as how to self-regulate, how to act in social situations, how to speak to an adult, how to manage their emotions, and how to respect physical boundaries. And I will stop right there for a second and say that some of that stuff, if you add like how to be on time, some of that stuff they will say is racist. Because, black culture, this and that, or maybe it's sexist because boys and girls are different. Or you could even say, well, it's ableist because some people have ADHD and some people have this and that. It's, I think, reasonable to expect that students can come into a classroom on time, sit in their desk, be quiet, and listen. Now, how well they do is a spectrum, right? That the teacher can't necessarily directly control. Now, they can directly impact, of course, but they can't control it. But what the kids can control more than anything else, and what the parents can help control, get your kid to school on time. Teach them they better sit their butt in that chair, be quiet, and respect the teacher. Now, I understand there are reasons why we are skeptical about respecting teachers and the new teachers, so kind of firing back at her because of stuff that's getting pushed in our schools and in our classrooms, but that's a different thing altogether, which we may hit on here in just a little bit, but we're going to go ahead and continue listening to Miss Brenda over here. And it appears that Brenda is not the only one feeling this shift in teaching. Among the over 9,000 commenters on her TikTok, other teachers voiced their opinions, with one user saying, "She's speaking the truth. I've been an educator for 32 years, pouring my heart and soul into every student, but things are different now. The disrespect from both children and parents." Says, "These comments do not pass the vice check. I'm a teacher with 6 years experience and already I'm looking for the road out. This is an entirely unsustainable job, and those who aren't in it don't get it." Probably. Yeah, I hate to correct a teacher there. Love this message. She's speaking the truth. I've been an educator for 32 years, poured my heart and soul into every student, but things are different now. The disrespect from both children and parents. Truest description, babysitters. I left year 18. I signed up to teach and nurture students, not literally raise other people's children. Your sixth grader can't tie their own shoe, recite their address. What the hell? I get it. Look, parents do treat it like a babysitting or a daycare. Parents are absent and tending to their parenting responsibilities so often now. We'll touch on that more in a minute, but all these comments seem to check out as far as I'm concerned, and I know people that are teachers and they say kind of the same things. A lot of the ones that I know are newer teachers, so they haven't seen this big of a shift, but they definitely comment a lot of the same kind of sentiments here about the babysitting and they can't stay still and stuff like that. And I'll never forget the meme that showed like what was it, like the 70s or the 80s, where the teacher would hand little Jimmy a bad grade, and then the parents would be yelling at little Jimmy like, "Why are you getting bad grades?" And then it showed a modern day picture of the same thing, but instead of the parents getting on to little Jimmy for getting a bad grade, they're getting on to the teacher for little Jimmy getting a bad grade. They're holding the wrong people accountable, and that's absolutely happening. In my house, my daughter is my friend. My daughter is my best friend. My daughter gets a lot of freedoms, but she's earned those freedoms. She listens to me. She's responsible. She's mature. I'm very, very strict in certain areas. And then other areas, I do give her some freedoms because I have to start learning to trust her. She has to start having the ability to let me down, the ability to prove me right, to prove me wrong. If I don't give her those options and those abilities to do that, I'll never know. And at the time that I finally have to kind of let her go and be free in the world, I won't know if she's ready or not. So in my opinion, I've got to, put some slack in that rope, give her a little freedom, give her a little distance, trust her, while also still being a parent, checking behind her, making sure she follows through with the things that she's supposed to. Punish her, discipline her, restrict her, whatever it is, when she does wrong. but we have a great time. We can still be friends at the same time. I know some people are going to disagree with that. No, you can't be your kid's friend. Everybody has different parenting relationships with their children, and everybody has different parenting advice. I'm a parent first and a friend second. A lot of parents are friends first and barely even parents. My child fears me if she knows she did wrong. And I like that to a degree. I don't want her to fear me necessarily, like really, really fear me. But she knows if she does wrong and I find out, she's going to get it. Now, I don't beat my child, but she's going to get something taken away from her, or she's going to get a scolding or whatever. But sometimes we just hop in the car and we drive through some of the richer neighborhoods and we just dream build together. Like, you can have this if you work hard. It's a different approach to kind of reinforcing some of these lessons, right? So let's go on through here. This is some of the parents' feedback. I'm just kidding. This is some of the parents' feedback. It says, thank you for all you have done to educate our youth and contribute to their lives. You have made a difference. I grew up a horrible childhood, and I had a few teachers I will never forget who cared. Thank you for your service, man. Parents aren't parenting. They are just having kids and trying to be their friend. Like I was saying, I believe you can have a little bit of both, but you have to be the parent first. That has to be the main thing. You have to create kids crave structure. They crave discipline to a degree. I've got a couple of boys that are nephews or second cousins or whatever, that at times, and even now one of them that I can think of, doesn't have a father or a father figure in their life. So whenever I would come around, or my father would come around, or I'd see another male come around, they would just latch on to us, because there's something that little boys crave in a fatherly figure, in a man. Like, they need that guidance. They need that structure. It's intuitive to them. And to be fair, it breaks my heart when I see that, because I wish they had their father, or I wish they had a stable father figure in their life. One justifiably lost his father unexpectedly, unfortunately, and he's gone on. But I love him dearly, and anytime I get with him, I try to spend as much time and as much attention on him, and be his buddy, while also still setting boundaries and structure when I am around. Because even though I'm not his father, you still have to kind of say, all right, you're the child. You can't do this. You can't do that. Like, we can play, but there's a limit to certain things, buddy. Okay. And you can't talk to me like that. I'm an adult. So you still have to set those expectations. In my opinion, I hate when people give parenting advice, and I'm not trying to do that. But I do think it's important to have structure. Absolutely. Create structure, create expectations, and then follow through. Don't just let stuff slide. Okay. And maybe that comes from being a manager forever too, is you have to follow up behind them and make sure that the agreed upon structure and expectations are being executed. I don't know. That's just me. I think last comment here. I think it goes both ways. We parents and teachers need to come together to change. Some parents work 2 jobs, and I hate the days I can't spend 2 minutes with my kids because work. So this kind of leads me into some rebuttal to this a little bit, some accompaniment to this a little bit, if you will. And I just jotted some notes down. So I don't have like a script or a chat GPT. I just make some notes. So, excuse me. So this is what happens when parents treat teachers and schools like babysitters. This is what happens when parents put themselves, their social media, their devices, and their interest before their kids. This is what happens when teachers' hands are tied and can't discipline or penalize the unruly students due to fear of being fired or canceled by woke parents and the school board. This is what happens when good parents stand up for their kids. Back to this last comment, stand up for their kids, and then they're labeled as domestic terrorists and removed from PTO meetings. I do believe there's that need for parents and teachers to come together. You have a group of teachers that want nothing to do with the parents, school boards that want nothing to do with the parents. You got parents that want nothing to do with them, but they have to utilize them because they have jobs and they got to put their kids in school and whatnot. Or in that school, they can't put them in like private school or homeschool or whatever it may be. And then when you try to have parents speak up and you actually have parents caring and coming to the meetings, if they go against the narrative or the agenda of that particular school board, hey, we've got people in the federal government says these are domestic terrorists. Get them out of here. And they're walking them out. Police escort from these meetings. And it's ridiculous. Okay, these are our kids. They're not the school's kids. They're our kids. So to kind of go along with this, we have to take back raising our kids. And then we've got to make sure that the expectation is on them of how they are going to teach our kids and work with our kids and the environment they're going to create for our kids. That is where we do have input. So they need to listen to that too. But first, we better start being better parents for our kids. Parents need to go back to being parents and quit trying to be their kids' best friends. Teachers need to go back to teaching basic fundamentals and stop pushing LGBTQ ideology and all this other crap in the classrooms. And schools need to listen to parents, quit hiding things from them as they relate to their own children. And you've heard about that, where they can change their pronouns or start trying to get treatments for gender dysphoria or whatever it is. And the parents are never notified. That's bills are being pushed through, conversations are being had in school board meetings. That's a legit thing. So wake up, America. This is happening, and not just America. This is happening around the world. So wherever you are, okay. Remember, not only do we have a major presidential election coming up this November, but there seems to always be local school board, city council, and other seats up for election throughout the year. Find out when they are, get involved, or heck, even run yourself. Why not? The first words in the United States Constitution are, "We the people." We the people. Never forget that it's our country, and the government and all its different facets work for us, not the other way around. Yes, parents need to step up and be better parents, but we all need to step up and start taking our country back in every way, shape, and form. We talked about the election earlier. Show up and vote. Take your friends, your family, talk to them, get them out there, go vote. Go to the school board meetings, go to the city council meetings. Look, we can sit at home, we can get on our computers right here, and we can bitch and moan all day long, and it will have little to no impact on change in our communities. If you want to see change, sometimes you have to be the change. And at minimum, you got to show up and just speak up. City council meetings, school board meetings, PTO meetings, parent-teacher conferences, whatever it may be, any elections for sure. But guys, all of this is us being complacent. We're letting other things raise our children. We're being distracted by these guys right here more than ever. We're letting these raise our kids, and heaven forbid the apps and the websites that our kids are going to that we don't even closely monitor. My kid has one of these that I pay very close attention to. She will not have a TikTok. She does not have a way to communicate with an adult human being. She has a child's app that only has certain people that we allow her to speak to on there. It is closely monitored. I get notifications every single time she tries to download an app. Again, that's that I give her freedom, but I also have to follow through with my expectations and make sure that she is doing what she's supposed to do. I have to have my ways of like checks and balances, so to speak. Parents start being parents again everywhere in the world. Americans start being Americans again. Get out and vote in the elections. Participate in all these things that I was just talking about. We have to take our country back, and we have to do it now. Guys, that's the show. I know it kind of ended on a heavy note there, but like I say, I do have some movie reactions coming out this week. I hope you'll check them out. Inside Out 2, and what was the other one? Devil Everywhere All the Time or something like that. It's a few years old. It was on Netflix, but I recently watched it and I was like, wow, I need to go talk about this. So look for those to come out. And like I said, if you did not see my July 4th message, definitely go check that out. I'll leave a link to it below, but it was the one that came out yesterday. So go check that out. I think you're really going to enjoy that and really get a sense of what all this was kind of stirred up upon and what this last holiday that we had, Independence Day, really means to me and really means to a lot of people. So if you're not an American, I think you still get it. I think you understand the passion and the excitement about it, and also the gravity of the thought that we could lose all of this, all of our liberties and freedoms in a single heartbeat or in a single election. So I'm very passionate about that. That's the whole reason this channel is out there, to get this information out there, to entertain, sure, but to educate, to inspire, and to get people out there and making a difference in the world. Guys, don't forget, our shows come out every Friday morning at 10 a.m. unless otherwise noted. Our little segments are cut up and sprinkled out throughout the week, sometimes with the reactions and whatnot, but we do call those segments our morning nuggets, and they do drop throughout the week. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, follow, whatever it is on whatever platform you're on. I'm so grateful that you are here watching us and tuning in, and I can't wait to see some of you guys in the comments if that's what you want to do, and we will talk to you next time.
All the mamas in the house always got these threats. You know, these threats they don't never do. They don't make no sense. Like, keep on running your mouth, and I'm going to rip your lips off your face. You're like, when did you ever do that? Say one more thing to me. I'm going to rip your arm off, beat you to death with it, and sew it back on. You don't have the medical capability to do such a thing.